we start where we are in practice, and where we are is perfect. At any point in our life, and in as much as we put in the energy and dedicate it to practice, we will experience that benefit for ourselves. Today, we will practice mindfulness, and mindfulness is a practice to keep ourselves in the present moment. It's not normal awareness. Our minds go all over the place. As we're doing activities, we're thinking about other things, past and future, or worried about other things, or telling just a kind of random story in our head. The Buddha really emphasized this, living in the present moment. And of course, every yoga teacher now talks about living in the present moment too. But you can talk about it in theory. To actually do it takes effort. It takes habituating, a gathering again and again, intention, structure, and redoing it again and again and again. To be practiced in the times of sitting, but meant to be seamless so that it carries through to all moments of our life. The Buddha was asked by a deva, a celestial being, why his practitioners had calm faces, and he answered, "They do not grieve over the past, nor do they yearn for the future. They live only in the present. That is why their face is so calm. It's from yearning for the future and from grieving over the past. This is how people become withered, like a fresh reed that's been hacked down." So one of the things that really moved me in the early part of my practice was when I went on my first retreat, and those of you that have been on retreats might have noticed this, in San Jose, California, Tathagata Meditation Center, sitting and walking all day. It was really miserable, right, the whole time. But I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. Miserable meaning I was looking at a lot of suffering, anger, annoyance, restlessness, pain in my body, judgment, some moments of peace, but a lot of difficulty. But I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, and that's exactly what touched me. And it touched me deeply, like, why is my face? It was radiant, it was glowing, and it was very calm. And it was almost like I had shed years off. I felt like I was looking at it, my 10-year-old face again, a kind of freshness to it. And it really struck me that how is that possible? That I've just been doing something with my mind, other than that, not really behaving that much differently than I do in my life. And that is showing up on my face. So witnessing, observing, and taking in the cause and effect relationship the practice had on me. And so it does, and I love the explanation, it does, meaning the practice does make our expression calm and radiant. And I love that in this teaching, he explains that we get withered in life through this proliferation of the mind about the future and the past. That withers us and makes us graceful, uncomposed, it weighs heavy on our faces, even it manifests in our bodies. So the training of mindfulness, there's techniques to it, but what it is keeping the practice, intention, and effort of bringing the mind just where you are. So as we do a day long like this, with this day long, we'll have some momentum for that. But don't set yourself up with a whole bunch of effort to get yourself through this 6 hours. Rather, allow yourself to relax and commit to this just now being a part of your life, to live in the present moment while you're sitting here. And then when you get up from here and you go out to dinner with a friend, if people do that anymore, or talk to a friend, or go for a walk, or do the dishes, or engage with your colleagues or your children, that you just incline the mind towards doing just that thing in front of you. And that ends up relieving a huge burden and a huge amount of stress for us. So when mindfulness was taught, oops, I opened the wrong thing. The mindfulness practice comes from what are called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The training is laid out in the Satipatthana Sutta. And that is for our meditation purposes. But if we investigate what those 4 foundations, we can see that training and awareness can be brought again to every part of our life. So the foundations of practice are the body. And when we watch the breath, we're watching our bodies. When we watch the posture, we're watching our bodies. When we watch sensation in the body, we're watching our bodies. Sensation in our head also, meaning our body, our physical experience in life. That's the first foundation, the easiest one, because our body's experience is gross, it's apparent to us. And it doesn't leave ever the present moment. Our bodies don't think. So the Buddha really emphasized this foundation as having the ability to take you all the way to the end of your practice. Second foundation is one that actually, let me know if in the instructions that you've had in your practice should be included the feeling tone of our experience. We just put your hand up if you've had that instruction. And let me see who has. Okay, most of you have. Good. So pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral is what the Buddha called Vedana. We have pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral experiences in our senses, in our bodies, in our minds. And this Vedana is in constant flux. One could, and nobody I know in America practices this, but I do know of somebody in Burma that practices this way. As the primary object of meditation, could just watch feeling tones as you're sitting, observing, unpleasantness in the body, pleasant thought, neutral feelings in the body, a neutral thought, a pleasant sound. One could just watch that, right? That's present moment experience, watching the fluxing change of pleasant, unpleasantness, and neutrality. As we watch for that in our practice, it's important to try to free your mind from any judgment around it. Pleasant is not good or bad. Unpleasant is not good or bad, right? Vedana is the second foundation of mindfulness. The third is Chitta, our consciousness, watching the quality of the mind states. The Buddha gave the instruction in this part of the sutta to know the mind affected by X, anger, desire, as the mind affected by, and then know the mind not affected by anger, as the mind not affected. Instruction as simple as that. And what it should point to us is that no feelings or emotions, also no good, no bad. In our mindfulness practice, we aren't meant to just sit and feel happy the whole time, only happy feelings the whole time. We cultivate concentration that will help us to be calmer in the face of the fluctuating mind. But the visiting of anger, like, okay, today, if you just felt rage all day long, that would not be bad practice. What visits us, grief, that would not be bad practice. The Buddha's advice, very clear, non-judgmental, know it as it is. And when it's gone, know that as it is. Happiness, the elated mind, the contracted mind. Sometimes it happens in our practice that we just feel very tight, not open. The contracted mind, think heart mind, not open, hates everything that it's experiencing. The Buddha's advice, know that as it is. So mindfulness has within it an ultimate pure kindness that just wraps around the reality of your experience as it is. Your emotions, your body and its pains, the emotions and its difficulties and sadnesses. It just hugs and says, it's like this. And in that, There's something that we gain, that we might not taste the fruit of the practices as we're doing it. We might walk through the valley of the shadow of death, as I like to say, during our practice. It can get dark sometimes. We can go through difficulties, and then we can go through peak periods. And we just keep the step in front of us, which is mindful moment to moment attention to get us through all of those experiences. What will happen is a development of faith over time with that step to be aware, the faith and awareness itself, that though it's difficult and hard right now, this awareness will lead to benefit. You'll see it and take this in now, because you've all done some meditation practice. You wouldn't do it again if you didn't feel some kind of benefit. So take it in now that it will always lead to benefit. This we can see with the law of cause and effect, that what we put in will lead to benefit, to get you through. If today, and I promise today, you will have an unpleasant experience. That's my guarantee. Maybe many, maybe lots and lots and lots. May you not, but it's possible. Pleasantness, unpleasantness, neutrality, constantly changing. The heart learns to just stay in reality as it is. Third, Cheta. Fourth is the mind, what are called mind objects, and there's a lot contained in the fourth foundation of mindfulness, including our senses, becoming aware of our senses, our seeing. Bring your attention now to your eye door and take in color. Just put your attention right there. Light, shape, form. Notice if you can have your attention there. Can you think at the same time? Can you be aware of your body at the same time? Can you be aware of sound at the same time? We can't. Our attention can only be in one place at a time, though it moves very quickly. Hearing, seeing, thinking a lot, thinking. This is the sixth sense in Buddhist practice, the thinking mind. We have our five senses, and it moves. Consciousness just moves. So this is why any meditation training is putting our attention on an object. A concentration object could be a visualization. It could be a mantra, like people that have practiced TM. You're putting your mind on something. In that moment, it's not in the afflictive places. It can't be in those two places at the same time. So what you do is you give your mind a break. So when you're meditating, we have the breath as the primary object of meditation. You're putting a little break in your mind. Moment, moment, moment. And they don't come consecutively necessarily. They don't stick on the object unless you're very concentrated. They might be every 7 moments. Then you land. Or maybe there's 365 moments that you weren't there, but then you land again. And that has an effect. It has an effect because our normal consciousness is just spinning, and that also has an effect. So we take attention. Yoniso manasikara is one of my favorite Pali terms, which means wise attention. And the Buddha emphasized this wise attention as the vehicle to freeing ourselves from all that creates stress for us. And this exploration and practice of where are we putting our attention. In the beginning, we just follow the instructions. That's what I did on my first retreat. I didn't have any expectations. I just followed the instructions. I don't know how or why I thought it was going to do anything, but I just did the instructions and then saw, wow, this really does do something. So I wanted to emphasize a Daylong of mindfulness with forgiveness and love as an emphasis. When we practice mindfulness as a practice in the West tends to draw a lot of kind of science-minded people, left-brained, people, because it is very rational, because it isn't belief based. Sometimes if we go too far into our left brains, then there can be a judging mind there that turns into the lens that we're watching our experience through unknowingly. Lenses are something that happen in our practice. They kind of seep in there, and we don't realize it. We could have a lens of an agenda of trying to get something from our practice. So it's a lens of craving, and it will interfere in the practice. And then we can have a lens of judging mind, where we're looking at this wandering mind, or we're looking at anger, or we're looking at fear, or we're looking at craving, and we judge it harshly. And that voice can stay in the head as if that's the Buddha's voice himself, that this is bad, I am wrong. But what we'll start to see is that that's just more affliction on top of affliction. And if it isn't kind, it's not the Buddha's practice. If it isn't understanding, it's not the Buddha's practice. If it isn't patient and forgiving, that it's not the Buddha's practice. So we can incline our attention to have certain lenses. So in the beginning of my practice, when I practiced with the Burmese monks, I had a lot of heavy should. And we did sit for an hour and walk for an hour, and I could never get through that whole hour without moving. In the first retreats, and that became my agenda. That's I needed to do that for some reason. That's probably, I'm not going to move. And I would just get racking pain in my body, and then I'd move, and then I'd have all these experiences of failure, whatever. But they told me, the Burmese monks said, don't move. That was their instruction. If you move, you'll always move. Don't move. And that's not how I teach, but I'm very grateful that they pushed me in that way and brought me to an edge of my comfort levels, and kept pushing me to the edge of my comfort in ways where I would have stayed stuck in my practice if I hadn't. And yet, when I finally went on a retreat, I said, no more agenda to not move. That's not it. I'm just going to be kind to myself. And I went on the retreat, and I just had that as an intention, to be kind. And it was the deepest practice that I had ever experienced up until that point. And I practiced kindness as much as I was practicing awareness. So being aware of the breath takes intention, reminding, habituating, and then I just kept threading into that, and kind. So my mind would start to be hard on myself, just kind. My mind would reject an emotion or experience, just kind. And it was the first retreat where I was able to actually sit for a whole hour without moving. So that doesn't need to be one's goal at all, but these wholesome mind states of kindness and forgiveness are very, very, very useful for our practice. So we don't have the ethical practices of Buddhism don't come with a piety that looks down on others, that shames others. It doesn't come with, it comes with understanding, even when we're watching people cause harm to others. When we really look inside our own hearts, we know exactly how those causes come up. And so that's what understanding is. The word forgiveness isn't one that is, I've never come across anyways, a Pali translation for the word forgiveness. And so there aren't ones where teachings directly from the suttas that the Buddha gave about this word. But to be forgiving means to be that we're letting go of judgment of people, we're letting go of anger, and we're letting go of resentment. So we're freeing the mind of those. And we don't do that for the person, but for ourselves who get afflicted, who hurt, when we hold on to these internal things. And we can know this, and we probably all do, conceptually know that these afflictive judging, or if we're just mad about something, we can't let it go. We can know that that hurts us, and sometimes our hearts still won't let him go. But there's then we have that forgiveness, and we extend it towards ourselves, towards the heart that is not willing to let go of that forgiveness of just seeing everything with the eyes of forgiveness. I saw this from a Christian quote that Peter asked, "How often shall my brothers sin against me and I forgive them?" And the answer came 70 times 7. I love that as inspiration to forgive again and again and again and again and again. We have to become clear about that we can keep clear boundaries in our lives. My personal story, this is being recorded and might go places, so I'm not going to tell my personal story, but forgiving doesn't mean that you're going to keep showing up with somebody that you know is going to continue, hasn't seen clearly the harm that they're causing. It just means that you don't have to hate them. So there's somebody in my life that I don't keep in my life at all, but I just don't harbor the hatred for this person, and I don't spend time with them either. So we have to understand that with this quality of forgiveness is an internal one, where there's a letting go of something. The way I'd like to practice it today and is really incorporating it as a self-forgiveness practice. Because when we close our eyes, we're not in interpersonal relationship at that time. We're just looking at ourselves, and just try to forgive everything that you watch and that appears before you today. Just forgive the wandering mind, forgive your body, forgive as you're aware of it, incline the mind towards a forgiveness. So it just is a lacing in behind your awareness and your practice. So let's start sitting. And okay, so you can see at the schedule here, what we're going to do is